The massive alien ship hung in space like a silver jewel against the black void. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the vessel approach with careful, measured movements. After 3 months of radio communications, this was finally happening. First contact with an actual alien civilization. Jake pressed his palm against the cool metal wall and took a deep breath. At 38 years old, he had trained his entire military career for moments like this, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Luna Station, with flowing curves that seemed to bend light around its hull. Dr. Lisa Grant appeared beside him, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. She had been Earth's lead xenobiologist for the past 5 years, but until today, that title had been mostly theoretical. Now she would be studying actual alien life forms. "The translation software is working perfectly," she said, her voice betraying her excitement. "Their language patterns are complex but logical. The AI can handle real-time conversations now." Jake nodded, still watching the alien vessel. "What do we know about them again?" Lisa consulted her tablet. "They call themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They're part of something called the Galactic Council, which includes 7 different alien races. According to their transmissions, they've been exploring space for over 50,000 years. The number made Jake's head spin. 50,000 years ago, humans were still learning to make fire and hunt mammoths. These beings had been traveling between stars since before human civilization even existed. "They seem peaceful," Lisa continued. "All their messages have been friendly. They want to welcome Earth into what they call the galactic community. They've been monitoring our radio signals for decades, learning about us." Jake turned away from the window. "And what do they think they know about us?" Based on their questions, they think we're a typical developing species. Young, aggressive, but showing promise. They've asked about our governments, our technology, our social structures. Standard stuff, I guess, for a species that's done this before. "The communication," panel chimed, and Jake moved to answer it. The voice that came through was strange, with odd clicking sounds mixed in with recognizable words. The translation software worked quickly, converting the alien speech into clear English. "Luna Station, this is Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian, diplomatic vessel Nexus Prime. We request permission to dock and begin formal first contact procedures." Jake picked up the microphone. "Ambassador Veltar, this is Commander Jake Morrison of Luna Station. You have permission to dock at Bay 7. Welcome to human space." There was a pause, then the alien voice returned with what sounded like pleasure. "Thank you, Commander Morrison. We are honored to finally meet humanity face to face. We will dock in 1 of your hours." As the communication ended, Jake felt his heart racing. This was really happening. After all the preparation, all the training, all the wondering if humans were alone in the universe, here was the answer. They were not alone, and they were about to become part of something much bigger than Earth. Lisa was already reviewing her notes about alien biology and customs. The Zephyrians had shared basic information about themselves. They were tall, thin beings with blue-gray skin and large eyes. They breathed the same air as humans and could eat some of the same foods. Most importantly, they seemed genuinely interested in peaceful contact. An hour later, Jake and Lisa stood in the docking bay with a small team of diplomats and scientists. The airlock cycled, and the door opened with a soft hiss. Jake held his breath. The first alien to step through was clearly Ambassador Veltar. He was exactly as described, nearly 7 feet tall with skin that seemed to shimmer in the station's lights. His eyes were huge and dark, and when he looked at Jake, there was intelligence there that was clearly not human, but somehow familiar. "Commander Morrison," the alien said, his voice carrying the same odd musical quality they had heard over the radio. "I am Ambassador Veltar. This is a historic moment for both our species." Jake stepped forward and extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, the alien reached out and grasped it. His skin was warm and surprisingly soft. "Welcome to Luna Station, Ambassador. We're honored to meet you." Behind Veltar came 6 other aliens, each from a different species according to the briefing materials. There was a short, stocky being, with rocky skin, a tall creature that seemed to be made of flowing water, and others that were even more unusual. Each one looked at the humans with obvious curiosity. "These are my colleagues from the Galactic Council," Veltar explained. "We represent the major civilizations in this part of the galaxy. We have been very interested in Earth since we first detected your radio signals." Dr. Grant stepped forward. "We have so many questions about your civilizations, your worlds, your technologies. This is beyond anything we dreamed of." One of the other aliens, this one with green skin and 4 arms, spoke up. "And we are equally curious about humans. You are a young species, but your radio transmissions show remarkable creativity and diversity. We have been studying your music, your stories, your scientific achievements." Jake felt a swell of pride. Earth might be young compared to these ancient civilizations, but apparently humans had impressed them somehow. Over the next several hours, the meeting continued in Luna Station's main conference room. The aliens asked questions about human government, human technology, and human culture. Jake and his team answered as best they could, trying to present humanity in the best possible light. The aliens seemed pleased with what they learned. They spoke of trade opportunities, scientific exchanges, and cultural sharing. They painted a picture of a galaxy full of different species working together, sharing knowledge and resources. "There is one thing we would very much like to see," Ambassador Veltar said as the formal meetings wound down. "We have studied your transmissions about human communities, but we would like to visit your planet directly, to see how humans actually live." Jake exchanged glances with Dr. Grant. They had expected this request, but it still made him nervous. Earth was not perfect. There were still wars, poverty, and environmental problems. Would these advanced aliens judge humanity harshly when they saw the reality rather than just the official presentations? "Of course," Jake said finally. "We would be happy to show you our world. What would you like to see?" The aliens consulted among themselves in their various languages. Finally, Veltar turned back to the humans. "We would like to see how typical humans live. Not your great cities or your advanced facilities, but your normal communities. Your rural areas, perhaps, where humans live more naturally." Dr. Grant leaned forward. "That's actually a wonderful idea. Rural communities show humanity at its most basic level. Our connection to the land, our traditional ways of life. I think you'd find it very interesting." Jake nodded his agreement. A rural visit seemed safe enough. Farmers, small towns, simple communities living peaceful lives. It would show the aliens that humans were not just about technology and cities, but had deep roots in their planet's natural systems. "Excellent," Ambassador Veltar said. "We would be honored to see this side of humanity. When can we arrange such a visit?" "Tomorrow, if you'd like," Jake replied. "We can take you to one of our agricultural regions. You can see how humans work with the land, how we've built our communities." The aliens seemed very pleased with this plan. As the meeting ended, and they prepared to return to their ship, Jake felt confident that first contact was going well. The aliens were friendly, curious, and respectful. Tomorrow's visit to Earth would surely cement the positive relationship they were building. He had no idea that tomorrow would change everything. Both species thought they knew about intelligence, civilization, and the relationship between predator and prey. The shuttle touched down on the grassy field with a gentle thud. Commander Jake Morrison looked out the window at the rolling hills of Montana, stretching as far as the eye could see. Behind him, Ambassador Veltar and 3 other alien delegates sat quietly, their large eyes taking in their first direct view of Earth's surface. Dr. Lisa Grant checked her tablet one more time. "Pete Sullivan has been ranching this land for 20 years. His family has been here for 4 generations. This is exactly what you wanted to see, humans living in harmony with nature." The shuttle door opened, and the group stepped out into the crisp morning air. The aliens immediately began scanning the environment with their handheld devices, recording everything from air composition to soil samples. Jake watched them work, amused by their scientific enthusiasm. A man in worn jeans and a cowboy hat approached them from a nearby farmhouse. Pete Sullivan was exactly what Jake had expected. Weathered face, strong hands, and the easy smile of someone who spent his life outdoors. Behind him trotted a black and white dog that immediately caught the attention of the alien scanners. "Welcome to the Sullivan Ranch," Pete said, extending his hand to Jake. "Been looking forward to meeting you folks. Not every day we get visitors from outer space." Ambassador Veltar stepped forward, his scanning device beeping softly as it analyzed Pete. "Thank you for allowing us to visit your home, Mr. Sullivan. We are very interested in learning about human agricultural practices." Pete grinned. "Well, you picked the right place. Been raising cattle here most of my adult life. Got about 2,000 head spread across these hills." One of the other aliens, Dr. Kethva from the rocky-skinned granite folk, held up his scanner with a confused expression. "Cattle? Our databases show this term, but the energy signatures we are detecting do not match our expectations." "Come on," Pete said, starting to walk toward a nearby pasture. "I'll show you the herd. They're grazing in the south field today." As they walked, the black and white dog stayed close to Pete's side. Jake noticed the aliens were watching it carefully, their scanners working overtime. The dog seemed friendly enough, occasionally looking up at the strange visitors with curious brown eyes. "That's Rex," Pete explained, noticing their attention. "He's my border collie, best cow dog I've ever had. Been working cattle with me for 6 years now." Dr. Grant smiled. "Border collies are incredible working dogs. They've been bred for centuries to help humans manage livestock." The word bred seemed to confuse the aliens, but before they could ask questions, they crested a small hill and saw the south pasture spread out below them. Jake heard Ambassador Veltar make a sharp intake of breath. Scattered across the green field were hundreds of large black and brown animals. They moved slowly, heads down, peacefully eating grass. To human eyes, they looked like normal cattle. But the alien scanners were going crazy, beeping and flashing with urgent warnings. Dr. Kethva stared at his device in shock. "These readings cannot be correct. The biological signatures indicate apex predator classifications." "Apex what now?" Pete asked, clearly confused. Ambassador Veltar's skin had gone pale blue. "Mr. Sullivan, our instruments are telling us that those animals are descended from the most dangerous predators on your planet. How is this possible?" Jake looked at the peaceful cattle, then back at the terrified aliens. "I think there might be some confusion. Those are just cows. They eat grass. They're completely harmless." "Harmless?" Dr. Kethva's voice cracked. "Our scanners show genetic markers identical to the ancient death beasts of Zephyr Prime. Creatures that once hunted in packs and could kill a full-grown Zephyrian with ease." Pete scratched his head under his hat. "Well, I suppose cattle are related to wild buffalo and such, but these animals have been domesticated for thousands of years. They're as gentle as house cats." At the mention of house cats, another alien scanner began beeping frantically. The third delegate, a tall being with silver skin, looked ready to run back to the shuttle. "You have domesticated apex predators?" Ambassador Veltar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Grant realized what was happening. "The genetic signatures you're reading are correct, but you're missing the key point. Humans have been selectively breeding these animals for over 10,000 years. We've changed them from wild, dangerous creatures into peaceful farm animals." The aliens looked at her as if she had claimed to move mountains with her bare hands. Pete, oblivious to the growing alien panic, started walking down toward the cattle. "Come on, I'll show you how gentle they are. We can get up close." "No." "Ambassador," Veltar called out. "Mr. Sullivan, those creatures could kill you." Pete stopped and turned around, genuinely confused. "Kill me? These old girls couldn't hurt a fly. Watch this." He put 2 fingers to his lips and whistled sharply. Rex immediately perked up and began running toward the cattle. The dog moved with fluid grace, circling around the herd and beginning to guide them into a tighter group. The aliens watched in absolute horror as the small predator worked to control the larger ones. Their scanners were detecting 2 different types of apex predators working together in perfect coordination. "This is impossible," Dr. Kethva breathed. "A pack hunter controlling herd beasts. This defies every natural law we know." Pete walked casually among the cattle as Rex brought them closer. The massive animals showed no fear of the human. In fact, several of them approached Pete and allowed him to pat their necks and faces. "These are some of my best breeding stock," Pete said proudly, running his hand along the flank of a particularly large cow. "This one here is Bessie. She's had 12 calves and is as sweet as they come." Ambassador Veltar's scanner was beeping so frantically it sounded like an alarm. "Mr. Sullivan, you are touching a creature that our instruments classify as a planetary-level threat. How are you still alive?" "Planetary-level threat?" Pete laughed. "Bessie here wouldn't hurt anyone. She's more afraid of thunderstorms than anything else, aren't you, girl?" As if to prove his point, the large cow leaned into Pete's touch, making a low, contented sound. To the humans, it was a perfectly normal interaction. To the aliens, it was like watching someone pet a live bomb. Dr. Grant tried to explain. "What you're seeing is the result of thousands of years of human-animal husbandry. We've taken wild, dangerous animals and gradually changed them through selective breeding. We've made them larger, gentler, and more useful to human society. You have controlled evolution itself." The silver-skinned alien's voice was barely audible. "In a way, yes," Dr. Grant replied. "Humans have been doing this with many different species. Dogs, cats, horses, pigs, chickens, sheep. We've partnered with these animals rather than simply hunting them or running from them." Rex finished gathering the cattle and came trotting back to Pete, his tongue hanging out in a happy expression. Pete reached down and scratched behind the dog's ears. "Good boy, Rex. That's how it's done." The casual affection between human and dog was the final straw for the alien delegates. Ambassador Veltar backed away slowly, his eyes never leaving Rex. "That creature," he said, pointing at the border collie, "descends from pack hunters that wiped out 3 species on our homeworld before we developed spaceflight. And you treat it as a companion? Rex?" Pete looked down at his dog. "He's family. Has been since he was a pup. Sleeps on my porch, eats at my table, works by my side every day. I trust him with my life." The aliens exchanged looks of pure terror. Commander Jake Morrison was beginning to understand that something fundamental had just changed in the relationship between humans and the galactic community. "Ambassador," Jake said carefully, "I think we need to have a longer conversation about human history and animal domestication." Ambassador Veltar nodded slowly, still staring at Rex and the cattle. "Yes, Commander Morrison, I believe we do. This changes everything we thought we knew about your species." As they walked back toward the shuttle, Pete called after them. "Y'all, come back any time, and bring your friends. Always happy to show folks around the ranch." The aliens picked up their pace, eager to put distance between themselves and the impossible scene they had just witnessed. Jake realized that humanity's entry into galactic society was going to be far more complicated than anyone had imagined. The flight from Montana to Denver took 2 hours, but it felt much longer. Ambassador Veltar sat in complete silence, staring out the shuttle window at the landscape below. The other alien delegates whispered among themselves in their native languages, their voices filled with worry and confusion. Commander Jake Morrison tried to break the tension. "The ranch was just one example of human agriculture. I think you'll find our cities much more familiar. Urban environments are similar across most civilizations, right?" Dr. Kethva looked up from his scanner, which he had been studying constantly since leaving Pete Sullivan's ranch. "Commander Morrison, we need to understand something. In 50,000 years of galactic exploration, we have never encountered a species that lives alongside apex predators. What we saw today should not be possible." Dr. Lisa Grant leaned forward in her seat. "I've been thinking about this during the flight. Maybe the problem is how we define apex predators. On Earth, humans became the dominant species precisely because we learned to work with other animals instead of just competing with them." "Work with them?" Ambassador Veltar's voice was strained. "Those creatures could have killed that farmer at any moment. How is that cooperation?" "But they didn't kill him," Jake pointed out. "They've been bred for thousands of generations to be gentle and useful. That's what domestication means." The aliens fell silent again, clearly struggling with concepts that challenged everything they believed about survival and evolution. As the shuttle approached Denver, Jake felt hopeful that the city would help normalize the situation. Cities were civilized, controlled environments. Surely the aliens would feel more comfortable seeing humans in their proper urban habitat, separated from the dangerous animals of the countryside. The shuttle landed at Denver International Airport, where city planner Amy Roberts was waiting for them. She was a cheerful woman in her 40s with short brown hair and a friendly smile. She had been briefed about the alien visit, but knew nothing about the earlier problems at the ranch. "Welcome to Denver," she said as the group disembarked. "I'm excited to show you how our city works. We've planned a walking tour of downtown, followed by visits to some of our best neighborhoods and parks." Ambassador Veltar seemed to relax, slightly. "That sounds acceptable. We are interested in seeing how humans organize their urban communities." Amy led them to a waiting van, chatting cheerfully about Denver's history and development. The aliens listened politely, their scanners taking readings of everything around them. For the first few minutes, everything seemed normal. Buildings, roads, vehicles, and humans going about their daily business. Then they reached downtown Denver and began their walking tour. The first sign of trouble came when a jogger ran past them on the sidewalk. She was a young woman in bright running clothes, and beside her ran a large German shepherd. The dog's tongue was hanging out, and it looked happy, but the alien scanners immediately began their frantic beeping. Ambassador Veltar stopped walking and stared after the jogger. What was that creature running with the human female? Amy looked confused. That was just someone out for a morning run with her dog. Pretty normal sight in Denver. Dog? Dr. Kethova's voice was tight with panic. That was clearly a pack hunter. Why was it not restrained? Amy laughed, thinking he was joking. Restrained? That dog probably loves running more than anything in the world. Exercise is good for dogs just like it is for humans. Before the aliens could respond, more joggers appeared. A man with a golden retriever, a woman with 2 smaller mixed breeds, and an elderly gentleman walking slowly with a basset hound. Each dog triggered the alien scanners, creating a symphony of warning beeps. "This is a nightmare," the silver-skinned alien whispered. "The city is overrun with predators." Amy finally realized something was wrong. "Are you folks okay? You seem upset about the dogs." Dr. Grant quickly stepped in. "Our visitors have different relationships with animals on their worlds. They're not used to seeing humans and dogs together." "Oh," Amy said, still confused but trying to be helpful. "Well, dogs are everywhere in Denver. We're a very pet-friendly city. Would you like to avoid areas where there might be dogs?" "Is that possible?" Ambassador Veltar asked hopefully. Amy thought for a moment. "Not really. Dogs are pretty common throughout the city, but don't worry, they're all friendly. Denver has strict leash laws and licensing requirements." As if summoned by her words, a family approached them on the sidewalk. The parents were pushing a baby stroller, and walking beside them were 2 children, maybe 8 and 10 years old. Between the children walked a large, fluffy dog that looked like a golden retriever mix. The alien delegates froze as the family drew near. The dog was clearly happy, its tail wagging and tongue hanging out. When it saw the strange visitors, it tilted its head curiously but showed no signs of aggression. "Good morning," the father said pleasantly as they passed. "Beautiful day for a walk." Jake returned the greeting, but the aliens were speechless. They watched in horror as one of the children dropped her toy. The large dog immediately picked it up in its mouth and brought it back to her. The little girl laughed and petted the dog's head, saying, "Good boy, buddy." After the family passed, Ambassador Veltar turned to Amy with desperate eyes. "That pack hunter could have killed those younglings instantly. Why do you allow such danger?" Amy stared at him. "Buddy? He wouldn't hurt anyone. He's probably the gentlest dog in the neighborhood. The kids love him. You let your offspring interact with apex predators?" Dr. Kethva was backing away from the direction the family had gone. "They're not apex predators," Dr. Grant said firmly. "They're domesticated companions. They've been bred to be gentle and protective of human families, especially children." The tour continued, but it became increasingly difficult as they encountered more dogs. a businessman walking a small terrier, a college student with a backpack, and a Labrador wearing a service dog vest, an old woman sitting on a bench while her tiny Pomeranian slept in her lap. Each sighting sent the aliens deeper into panic. Their scanners were going off constantly, detecting what they perceived as deadly predators roaming freely through human society. The breaking point came when they reached Washington Park. Amy had saved this for last, thinking the aliens would enjoy seeing Denver's green spaces. Instead, they found themselves in what appeared to be Predator Central. The park was full of people and their dogs. Dogs running off leash in the designated area, playing fetch with their owners. Dogs swimming in the pond, retrieving sticks and balls. Dogs lying peacefully under trees while their humans read books or had picnics. And worst of all, from the alien perspective, were the children. Kids were everywhere, playing with dogs of all sizes, throwing balls, giving hugs, even lying on the grass using large dogs as pillows. "This is madness," Ambassador Veltar breathed, watching a toddler giggle as a golden retriever licked his face. "Your species allows pack hunters to interact directly with your most vulnerable members." Amy was getting frustrated. "They're not pack hunters. They're pets, family members. Most of these dogs would die before letting anything hurt these kids." "Die to protect them?" The silver-skinned alien looked faint. "You have turned predators into guardians?" Before anyone could answer, a frisbee landed at Ambassador Veltar's feet. A border collie similar to Pete Sullivan's Rex came bounding over to retrieve it. The dog looked up at the tall alien, tail wagging, waiting patiently for him to move so it could get its toy. The alien stared down at the dog in terror. The dog stared back with friendly brown eyes, panting slightly from running. Finally, Jake picked up the frisbee and threw it back to the waiting human player. The dog raced after it, barking with joy. "We need to return to the shuttle," Ambassador Veltar said quietly. "Now." As they walked quickly back through the city, passing more dogs and their human families, the aliens remained silent. But Jake could see them exchanging glances, their expressions mixing fear with something that might have been awe. Dr. Grant fell into step beside Jake. "I don't think they understand what domestication means." "I don't think they understand what it means to be human," Jake replied, watching Ambassador Veltar flinch as a child ran past with a laughing puppy chasing after her. The shuttle ride back to Luna Station was even quieter than the flight to Denver. The aliens sat motionless, occasionally looking at their scanner readings and shaking their heads in disbelief. Jake realized that showing them rural and urban human life had not reassured the galactic delegates. Instead, it had revealed something about humanity that apparently no other species in the galaxy had ever achieved. And judging by the aliens' reactions, it was either the most impressive thing they had ever seen, or the most terrifying. The conference room on Luna Station felt different this time. The alien delegates sat stiffly in their chairs, their scanning devices placed carefully on the table in front of them. Ambassador Veltar had requested an emergency meeting to understand what they had witnessed on Earth. His blue-gray skin looked pale, and his large eyes never stopped moving, as if he expected a pack of dogs to burst through the doors at any moment. Commander Jake Morrison sat across from the aliens, flanked by Dr. Lisa Grant and Dr. Ben Clark, Luna Station's xenoarchaeologist. Dr. Clark had spent the last 6 hours preparing a presentation that he hoped would explain human history with animals. His laptop was connected to the room's main screen, ready to show thousands of years of human development. "Before we begin," Ambassador Veltar said quietly, "I must tell you that we have sent a preliminary report to the Galactic Council. What we have seen on your planet is unprecedented in our 50,000 years of exploration." Dr. Grant leaned forward. "Ambassador, I think once you understand our history, you'll see that what we've accomplished is actually quite natural. Humans have always been partners with other species." "Partners?" Dr. Kethba's rocky skin seemed to darken. "The creatures we observed could kill humans easily. How can you call that partnership?" Dr. Clark cleared his throat and activated his presentation. The screen lit up with an image of ancient cave paintings showing humans and wolves hunting together. "Let me start at the beginning," Dr. Clark said, 30,000 years ago, humans were not the dominant species on Earth. We were hunters and gatherers living in small groups, struggling to survive in a world full of dangerous predators. The aliens leaned forward, their interest clearly caught. This was more like what they had expected from a young species. But then something happened that changed everything. Dr. Clark continued. Humans began forming partnerships with wolves. The next image showed early humans sharing food with wolf-like creatures around a fire. Ambassador Veltar made a sharp intake of breath. This is impossible. Wolves are pack hunters. They would see humans as either prey or competition. That's what makes humans different, Dr. Clark explained. Instead of fighting the wolves or running from them, some humans began to cooperate with them. They shared food, provided shelter, and worked together to hunt larger prey. Dr. Grant added, the wolves that were most friendly to humans survived better. They had regular food, protection from other predators, and help raising their young. Over many generations, these wolves began to change. The presentation showed a series of images depicting the gradual transformation from wolves to early dogs. The aliens watched in stunned silence as Dr. Clark explained how humans had selected the gentlest, most cooperative wolves for breeding. Arrow controlled their reproduction. The silver-skinned alien's voice was barely a whisper. We guided it, Dr. Clark said. We chose which animals would have offspring based on traits that were useful to humans. Gentleness, loyalty, intelligence, specific abilities like hunting or herding. The next series of images showed the incredible diversity of dog breeds that had developed over thousands of years. Tiny Chihuahuas, massive Great Danes, sleek Greyhounds, and fluffy Pomeranians, all descended from the same wolf ancestors. Ambassador Veltar stared at the screen. You created all of these different forms from the same original predator? Over thousands of generations, yes, Dr. Clark replied. Each breed was developed for specific purposes, some for hunting, some for herding, some for protection, and some simply for companionship. The aliens exchanged glances. Dr. Kethva spoke up. You said this happened 30,000 years ago. That is longer than some of our civilizations have existed. Exactly, Dr. Grant said. Humans have been doing this since before we developed agriculture, before we built cities, before we invented writing. It's one of our oldest and most fundamental abilities. Dr. Clark advanced the presentation to show other domesticated animals. Cats stalking mice in ancient Egyptian temples. Horses carrying warriors into battle. Cattle pulling plows through fields. But dogs were just the beginning, he explained. Once humans understood how to work with wolves, we applied the same principles to other species. We domesticated cats to control rodents. We tamed horses for transportation and warfare. We bred cattle for food and labor. The image of ancient warriors riding horses seemed to particularly disturb the aliens. Ambassador Veltar pointed at the screen with a shaking finger. Those humans are riding atop apex predators. How did they survive? Horses aren't predators, Dr. Grant explained. They're herbivores, like your people. But they're large and strong, and in the wild they can be dangerous. Humans learn to work with their natural behaviors, to train them and breed them for cooperation. Dr. Clark showed images of various farm animals throughout history. Pigs, sheep, goats, chickens, all descendants of wild animals that had been gradually transformed through selective breeding. Every major human civilization has been built on partnerships with animals, he said. We've never been alone on Earth. We've always shared our world with other species. The silver-skinned alien looked at his scanner readings again. But the genetic signatures we detected showed these animals still carry predator DNA. They should be dangerous. They carry the DNA but not the behaviors, Dr. Grant explained. That's what domestication means. We've kept the useful traits like strength, speed, and intelligence while breeding out the aggression and fear. Dr. Clark advanced to more recent images. Modern farms with cattle and sheep. City streets with people walking dogs. Families at home with cats and pet birds. This is what you saw on Earth today, he said. The result of 30,000 years of human-animal partnerships. We don't see these animals as tamed predators. We see them as family members, work partners, and friends. Ambassador Veltar was silent for a long moment, staring at an image of a child sleeping peacefully with a large dog curled up beside her bed. "Your species has created an entirely new form of evolution," he said finally. "You have taken natural selection and bent it to your will." "We've guided it," Dr. Grant corrected. "We haven't stopped evolution. We've directed it toward cooperation instead of competition." Dr. Kethva looked up from his own scanner. "The implications are staggering. If humans can transform apex predators into companions, what else might they be capable of?" Dr. Clark smiled. "Well, we've also learned to cooperate with each other. Human civilization is built on the same principles we use with animals: communication, mutual benefit, and selective breeding of ideas instead of just genes." "Selective breeding of ideas?" The silver-skinned alien looked confused. "We call it culture," Jake Morrison said, speaking for the first time in a while. "Humans share knowledge, build on each other's discoveries, and pass the best ideas to the next generation, just like we do with animal breeding, but with thoughts instead of genetics." The aliens sat in stunned silence, processing what they had learned. Ambassador Veltar finally spoke. "In all our years of galactic exploration, we have never encountered a species like yours. Most civilizations either dominate their environments completely or adapt to them. You have created a third option." "Cooperation," Dr. Grant said simply. "Yes," Ambassador Veltar replied. "And if you can turn the most dangerous predators on your planet into loyal companions, the Galactic Council will want to know what other impossibilities you might achieve." Dr. Clark closed his presentation. "There's one more thing you should understand about humans. Everything we've shown you, everything we've accomplished with animals, we did it long before we had advanced technology. We did it with patience, observation, and the willingness to trust other species." Trust. Ambassador Veltar repeated the word as if it were foreign to him. "That's the key," Jake said. "Humans learn to trust animals, and they learn to trust us back. That's how we built a world where children can play safely with descendants of wolves, and farmers can walk peacefully among creatures that could theoretically harm them." The aliens looked at each other with expressions that mixed fear, awe, and something that might have been respect. "We must report this to the Galactic Council immediately," Ambassador Veltar said. "This changes everything we thought we knew about intelligence, evolution, and what it means to be a civilized species." As the meeting ended, Jake realized that humanity's relationship with the galaxy was about to become much more complicated than anyone had anticipated. The massive space station orbiting Kepler 442b was the largest structure humans had ever seen. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the human transport ship, watching the incredible sight grow larger as they approached. The station was home to the Galactic Council, and today they would decide humanity's fate. 3 weeks had passed since Ambassador Veltar's return from Earth. 3 weeks of heated debates, emergency sessions, and urgent communications between dozens of alien civilizations. The report about human domestication of apex predators had spread through the galaxy like wildfire, causing reactions that ranged from fascination to outright terror. Dr. Lisa Grant stood beside Jake, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. "I still can't believe we're here. 6 months ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're about to address the governing body of the galaxy. And all because we're friends with dogs and cows," Jake replied with a nervous smile. The transport ship docked with a soft thud. Jake, Dr. Grant, and Dr. Ben Clark were escorted through corridors filled with aliens of dozens of different species. Some looked familiar from their research, others were completely new. All of them stared at the humans with mixtures of curiosity and caution. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in rising circles around a central speaking area. 47 different alien species were represented, each with their own section of the vast room. At the center sat Council Prime Zexani of the ancient hegemony, a being so old that his crystalline body seemed to glow with accumulated wisdom. Ambassador Veltar met them at the entrance. His blue-gray skin still looked pale and his large eyes were troubled. Commander Morrison, the Council has been debating your species for days. What you have accomplished on Earth has caused more discussion than any discovery in my lifetime. Good discussion or bad discussion? Dr. Grant asked. Both, Veltar replied honestly. Some council members believe humans represent the greatest advancement in civilization the galaxy has ever seen. Others think your species is too dangerous to be allowed into galactic society. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Dangerous? Because we have pets? Because you have turned the natural order upside down, Veltar explained. Every species in this chamber achieved intelligence by either dominating their environment or adapting to it. You did something else entirely. You created partnerships with creatures that should have been your enemies. Council Prime Zexani's voice echoed through the chamber, calling the session to order. The ancient being's words were translated into dozens of languages simultaneously, creating a low hum of alien speech. We gather today to consider the classification of the species known as humans, Zexani announced. Ambassador Veltar will present his findings, followed by statements from humanity's representatives. Ambassador Veltar moved to the center of the chamber. His presentation began with the same images Dr. Clark had shown weeks earlier, but the impact on the council was immediate and dramatic. Gasps, clicks, and various alien expressions of shock filled the air as the delegates saw humans living peacefully with what their databases classified as deadly predators. When Veltar showed the video footage from Pete Sullivan's ranch, several council members actually stood up and backed away from their seats. The sight of a human casually walking among cattle while a border collie herded them was apparently too much for some alien minds to process. This footage is authentic, Veltar said. Humans not only live alongside apex predators, they have transformed them into cooperative partners through a process they call domestication. A delegate from the Insectoid Hive Collective raised a chittering protest. This is impossible. Predators cannot be changed so completely. And yet the evidence is before you, Veltar replied. Humans have been doing this for 30,000 years, longer than many of our civilizations have existed. The debate that followed was intense. Dr. Grant watched as alien after alien stood to voice their opinions. Some were clearly terrified by what humans had accomplished. A representative of the aquatic depth dwellers spoke of humans as reality benders who violated natural law. Another delegate called humanity the predator whisperers and suggested they might be dangerous to other intelligent species. But not all the reactions were negative. An ancient being from the Cloud Dancers spoke of humans as evolution shepherds who had achieved perfect harmony. A young delegate from the Crystal Communes called humanity the bridge builders between species. Finally, Council Prime Zexani called for the human representatives to speak. Jake felt his heart pounding as he walked to the center of the chamber, followed by Dr. Grant and Dr. Clark. Honored Council, Jake began, his voice echoing in the vast space. We come before you, not as conquerors or dominators, but as friends. Everything we have accomplished on Earth was done through cooperation, patience, and trust. Dr. Grant stepped forward. The animals you fear on our world are not our slaves or our weapons. They are our partners, our family members, and our friends. We did not force them to change. We offered them a better life, and over thousands of generations they chose to accept it. But how do we know you will not do the same to us? Called out a delegate from the Void Stalkers. If you can transform apex predators into pets, what might you do to other intelligent species? Dr. Clark answered. The same thing we do with each other. Humans have been cooperating with other humans for just as long as we've been working with animals. We've learned to share resources, exchange knowledge, and build societies based on mutual benefit, rather than domination. Prove it, demanded the representative from the Warhounds, a militaristic species known for their aggressive nature. Show us that humans can be trusted. Jake looked around the chamber at the dozens of alien faces watching him. Some showed fear, others curiosity, and a few seemed almost hopeful. We can't prove it with words, Jake said, but we can prove it with actions. Give us a chance to show you what cooperation looks like. Let us share our knowledge of domestication, our understanding of partnership, Maybe together we can accomplish things none of us could achieve alone. The debate continued for hours. Jake and his team answered question after question about human history, biology, and society. They explained how domestication worked, why humans had developed this ability, and what it meant for interspecies relations. Finally, Council Prime Zexani called for deliberation. The humans were escorted to a waiting area while the 47 species debated their fate. "What do you think they'll decide?" Dr. Clark asked as they sat in the small chamber. "I honestly don't know," Jake replied. "We've shown them something that apparently no other species has ever achieved. That could be seen as either wonderful or terrifying." After what felt like an eternity, Ambassador Veltar came to retrieve them. His expression was unreadable as he led them back to the council chamber. Council Prime Zexani's ancient voice filled the space once again. After extensive deliberation, the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding the species known as humans. Jake held his breath. "Never before in our recorded history have we encountered a species that has achieved what you call domestication. Your ability to transform apex predators into cooperative partners represents a form of evolution management that surpasses anything in our databases." Zexani paused, and Jake felt his heart racing. "Therefore, the Council has decided to grant humanity provisional membership in the galactic community. However, you will not be classified as a standard civilization." Dr. Grant gripped Jake's arm. "What does that mean?" "You will be designated as a symbiotic apex culture," Zexani announced. "The first of your kind in galactic history. Your unique abilities will be studied, respected, and potentially learned from by other species." The chamber erupted in a mixture of cheers, protests, and alien expressions of various emotions. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. "There is one condition," Zexani continued, and the chamber fell silent. "Humanity must agree to share your knowledge of interspecies cooperation with the Council. There are threats coming from the outer rim that may require new approaches to unity and partnership." Jake looked at Dr. Grant and Dr. Clark, then stepped forward. "Council Prime, humanity accepts your offer. We look forward to learning from you and to sharing what we've learned about cooperation and partnership." As the session ended and delegates began filing out of the chamber, Ambassador Veltar approached the human group. "Congratulations," he said. "You have just changed the course of galactic history." Jake looked out through the chamber's massive windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there was Earth, where children played with dogs, farmers worked with cattle, and cats slept peacefully on warm windowsills. "I think," Jake said quietly, "this is just the beginning." Back on Earth, 8-year-old Lucy Chen threw a tennis ball across the park for her golden retriever Max. The dog bounded after it joyfully, tail wagging in the afternoon sun. Neither the girl nor her four-legged best friend had any idea that their simple game of fetch had just redefined what it meant to be an advanced civilization in the eyes of the galaxy. But perhaps that was exactly the point. To humans, friendship with other species wasn't advanced technology or cosmic achievement. It was just the most natural thing in the world.